Hello, BookTube. I've had a full and busy day on this Sunday. Beautiful, beautiful Sunday, but full and busy, full of annoying things and pleasant things and time-consuming things. So we're doing two read-alongs for this channel. We're doing a read-along of Thomas Covenant and a read-along of Dune, of the Dune books of Frank Herbert. And I'm going to, this one time, because this Sunday has gone so much out of my control, I'm going to keep these fairly brief, the read-alongs for this week. In both cases, they are part of larger events. Me and a group of other booktubers are doing a read-along of all the first six of Stephen R. Donaldson's Thomas Covenant novels. The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever, and the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever. We have decided to ignore the third Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. In July, we did Lord Foulsbane, and in August, we did the Ill-Earth War, and here in September, we're doing The Power That Preserves, the third book in the first Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever. And today, we are reading the next 5 chapters, all the way to chapter 11, called The Ritual of Desecration. And this is the story of a man from our world, a man from the normal world, Thomas Covenant, who is a leper, and who has, as a keepsake of the wife who deserted him when she learned his diagnosis, a white gold wedding ring that is commonplace in our world, but in the alternate fantasy land to which he is transported, the land, it's the source of wild magic, of chaos magic. It's an incredibly powerful talisman that no one else wants to take from him and that he doesn't know how to use. And the land is beset by war between two groups, the good guys and the bad guys, the Lords at Revelstone, these staff-wielding magicians, and Lord Foul, who is a kind of a Sauron-type amorphous evil creature who makes war on the land and also perverts things. He has a vast army. In this case, in this particular novel, his vast army is led by a giant, a member of a heroic species, a heroic race in the land, a race that is delineated fairly well in the second trilogy of Thomas Covenant. We'll get to that in this winter, but they are giant. What you see one of them on the cover there, they're twice as tall as a human being, and they're noble. They are pure practitioners of the magic of the land. Except that Lord Foul has learned, he has combined not only his 3 most faithful bodiless servants, the Ravers, who can possess people, but also shards of a malevolent mystic thing called the Ill-Earth Stone. You combine those two things to possess the bodies of 3 giants, and they lead his armies. Now, one of those possessed giants went to the home of the giants and the land, far to the east of the land, and slaughtered all the remaining giants in the land before being killed himself. And the second of those 3 giants led the army that was the focal point of the action in the Ill-Earth War, the second book in this trilogy. And that army is only barely defeated, and that giant is killed. And you can't kill the Raver, but you can kill their body. That giant is killed, and that leaves one giant left. That leaves one giant left. He is leading a huge army, and he is besieging Revelstone, the home of the Lords, when this novel begins. Lord Foul, thanks to his victory in the Ill-Earth War, has grown immensely more powerful than he was before. And not only can defy and warp the seasons. When Thomas Covenant arrives in the land for this book, there's a bitter, penetrating winter going on that doesn't feel natural at all. Not only can Lord Foul do that, but he can also break the laws of the dead. He can reanimate the dead. That law was broken in the Ill-Earth War, and he takes full advantage of it. And at the beginning, as we saw last time, at the beginning of this book, Thomas Covenant is first summoned to the land by Lord Moran, one of the only surviving original characters from the first 2 books, who is now High Lord of the Lords at Revelstone, and who is facing this siege and the end of everything. Lord Moram can look out at this giant's vast army and know, beyond a doubt, that Revelstone cannot possibly survive, and if Revelstone dies, the land dies. So he views that as the ultimate justification to try to summon Thomas Covenant again, even though he knows that Thomas Covenant doesn't believe the land is real and doesn't want to be summoned. He summons him anyway. But just at the moment that he does that in our world, Covenant is desperately trying to save a little girl from being bitten by a rattlesnake. He's trying to bring her back to her parents. He stumbles, he has a bad wound on his forehead, has a cut in his mouth from a razor put in a loaf of bread that the townspeople don't want a leper living anywhere near them. They want to make that clear. He's, in other words, a wreck when Moram summons him, and he violently says, "No, you have to send me back. I'm the girl's only hope. You have to send me back." And Moram makes the decision, typical of the lords of the land, saying, "We will not be saved at this cost, so you can go back." And Covenant goes back, and he saves the girl. And just as he does, he is summoned again, but not by Moram. He's summoned by the giant who was his companion and friend in Lord Foulsbane, Saltheart Foamfollower, who is now a bitter resistance fighter, killing Lord Foul's forces wherever he can find them in the land. The last giant in the land, aside from the warped being that is leading the army. And Covenant is also summoned by a man named Treok, who he wronged in Lord Foulsbane. Covenant has, as he puts it in this book, he has a long litany of wrongs behind him. He's been a disaster for almost everyone who's known him. Probably no one more so than the preteen girl named Lena, who he rapes when he first comes to the land in Lord Foulsbane. Lena returns as a character in this book. Her mind has been shattered by her experience. She's an old woman because time passes differently in the land than it does on Earth. So roughly 50 years have passed, all told, since the first events of Lord Foulsbane. So Lena is an old woman, and her mind is largely gone. And her fate in the chapters that we're reading today is not pretty. It's an ugly, sordid fate. But before it gets ugly and sordid, it gets perverted. There's no other word to use. What's going on in Donaldson's mind when it comes to Covenant and women? There's no other word to use. Not only does he rape Lena, but when Lena's mother, Atiaran, finds out, she's willing to forgive him. She's more upset with other things that happen in their journey than she is with that. And not only that, but that's just in the first book. In the second book, years have passed in the land. Thomas Covenant returns, meets the High Lord of the Lords at Revelstone, who in this case is a young woman named Elena, who is the daughter of the young girl he raped. She is his daughter. And as if that weren't bad enough, she has the hots for him and starts to call him beloved. They embrace. And in this book, that sordid strain just continues. Because Lena is still besotted with this man who raped her and violated her and unseated her reason. She's still just absorbed with him, calls him beloved, wants to marry. Now, in Donaldson's defense, his Covenant is roughly groping towards moral accountability. He's no longer blithe towards any of this, and of course refuses anything that Lena thinks. And the chapters that we're reading today only deal with Covenant and Lena and Saltheart Foamfaller, and then a little later on, a band of fellow resistance fighters who encounter our trio of heroes, one of whom is Banner, who was a member of the Blood Guard, an unaging, group of super warriors who are pledged to protect the Lords of Revelstone at all costs. That vow that made the Blood Guard immortal and sleepless was broken at the end of the Illyrth War by Thomas Covenant, accidentally. But still, it's like he says, he leaves a litany of tragedies behind him. That vow was broken at the end of the Illyrth War, and the Banner that we meet in The Power That Preserves, in the chapters that we're reading today, has aged. He has gray in his hair. He needs to sleep. He dreams. He needs to eat. But nevertheless, he is still largely himself, and that is the adventures of those characters, including some sorry, Frida's thrashing around on the floor, including some pretty bitter and effective battle scenes, is the heart and soul of the chapters that we're reading today. That and one shattering realization that Covenant comes to belatedly while he's with Foamfollower, which is that something fundamental to the land has changed. In Lord Foulsbane and in the Illyrth War, one of the most startling things for Covenant, in fact, one of the reasons that he uses as justification for raping Lena, in addition to thinking that the land is just a dream, is that the land is such a healthy place, so invigorating, that it actually starts to reverse his nerve damage. It actually starts to reverse his leprosy. And this time around, in the power that preserves, the land has been so racked by Lord Fowl that that quality is no longer present. We get a little description. Covenant. This is Donaldson's over-the-top purple prose, but by power that preserves, I'm kind of used to it. Dream health. He knew that it had always been a lie, that leprosy was incurable because dead nerves could not be regenerated, that the previous impossible aliveness of his fingers and toes was the one incontrovertible proof that the land was a dream, a delusion. Yet the absence of that health staggered him, dismayed the secret yearning recusancy of his immedicable flesh. See what I mean? Recusancy, immedicable. Not anymore, he gaped dumbly. Now he had been bereft of that too. The cruelty of it seemed to be more than he could bear. That's at the point in these chapters when he realizes that his numb feet and hands are not returning. That the sensation is not returning in them. That he's in fact just as sick as he was, and maybe getting sicker all the time. And Banner points it out to him with the senses of the Blood Guard when they first meet. He says, "You reek of infection." But nevertheless, despite all that, or maybe really because the land is not tempting him in that way anymore, Covenant decides in these chapters that we're reading today that he's had enough of being the victim, that he's had enough of being Lord Fowl's victim. And he decides on an absolutely insane course of action, which is that he's going to march with Foamfall or without him straight east to Lord Fowl's stronghold, and as Covenant puts it, bring it down around his ears. That somehow between where they are now and that point, he will discover how to use his white gold wedding ring, the one power that can do that. He has no idea how that's going to happen, and neither does anyone else who's with him, but he's determined to go. And that is the sole pure thing in the 5 chapters that we're reading today. All the rest is degradation. The Ranihin, the magnificent horses of the center plains of the land, horribly degraded. All the people that Covenant knows, horribly degraded. Lena, out of her mind and in danger. Everything. The land is laid waste. There's virtually nothing in it that Covenant remembers. And it's under the oppressive hand of this horrible winter. That is the purpose, I believe, of these chapters that we're reading, is to give us a real boots-on-the-ground level look at the changes that have taken place in the land. And neatly enough, Chapter 10 ends that part of the story. And Chapter 11, we shift focuses. This book, like the Illithor War, readily shifts focus away from Covenant. So you're not constantly, cheek by jowl, with this disgusting, whining, self-pitying piece of crap. Instead, you are also going to have a heroic narrative. The heroic narrative in this book is obviously the Siege of Revelstone. Sieges are difficult to dramatize. Donaldson does a better job of it than almost anybody else I know. Almost any other book that I've ever read, a piece of fiction anyway. And that is what we will do next time. That is the next 5 chapters. So we will be starting with the Ritual of Desecration. And we will be going on to Lord Morham's Victory. So those are the 5 chapters we'll be reading next time. Sorry to give it such a short shrift this time around. I think I hit all the points that I wanted to hit, but my Sunday has eaten up my time. So as it is, I probably won't have time to upload these videos. Probably my Sunday videos will go up on Monday, which is just horrible. But anyway, we're going to wrap this up for now. I'd love to know what you're all making of this, especially those of you who are reading The Power That Preserves for the first time along with me. My co-hosts for this Donaldson event are only doing one video a month. They've let me to do an actual week-by-week read-along. So let me know what you think of these 5 chapters, and we'll move on next time. Next time, I mean, it's grim reading anyway because Lord Fowl is winning. The land is, this beautiful place, is being rent from end to end. But nevertheless, I can promise you that if you found these 5 chapters a little bit of a drag, the next 5 chapters will make up for it. When the action shifts to Revelstone, things are at least more interesting to read. So we'll move on. We'll move on to that next time. So I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.